Here's another fun fact from the movie Blackhawk Down. There's a very short scene where a guy comes running up to my Humvees as we're getting ready to drive out into the city streets and try to get to the Durant crash site. And in 2 seconds in the movie, he asks a question that deserves a whole lot more explanation. Comes running up to the Humvee and he says, "Hey, can I go, Sergeant?" And Brian Van Holt, the actor who plays me in the movie, says, "You got some ammo?" "Yeah." "Well, then jump in."
Roger that, Sergeant. Hop in!
That really happened in real life. But I need to explain why that scene is such a big deal, and I also need to explain what you're watching when you see this scene. At this point in the fight, all of the assaulters are already out in the city streets, and there's just a handful of us that came back with the first few casualties. We're turning around and we're going back out to the crash site. We've already put the search and rescue force in the city streets. And now basically all of the shooters from the whole task force are already out there and already getting it on with the bad guys. At this moment, when I'm ready to roll back out into the streets and try to get to the crash site, I need more guns. I need a lot more guns. And everybody realizes we don't have enough guns to handle the volume of enemy fire and the total number of bad guys that we're up against. And so we invite literally everybody else from the whole force. True story. I had an intelligence analyst who jumped on the back seat of my Humvee and took Dominic Pilla's place. I had a cook who got on the back of one of my other Humvees and stayed on there. We had the ammunition supply specialist, we had clerks, we had everybody jump on those Humvees, because in this special operations force, you are a fighter first and a ranger first, and then you are a specialist doing your specialty job second. But I also want you to know that most of those guys have never really been shot at, never really been to combat before they jumped on those Humvees and rolled back out there with me. When you see this 2-second scene in the movie, you see somebody who's saying, my buddies are out there in that city street, we need more guns. This isn't what I do for a living, but I've got my gun, I've got my ammo, and I'm ready to go. Can I go along with you? I watched in total amazement. I was completely inspired by the supporters that jumped on those vehicles and rolled back out in the city streets, and not just once, but they rolled back out there again and stayed in those vehicles with me all night long. At one point in the middle of the night, we were taking fire from a second-story window in a building across the street, and I told the cook in the back of one of my vehicles to take a M203 round and put it inside the window. One round, one guy who's never really been in a firefight before, and he puts the round right inside the window and blows up the bad guy and takes care of the enemy fire that we're taking from across the street. That's how impressive, that's how inspiring these guys are. And when you see this 2-second scene in the movie, I want you to recognize, and I hope because of this little short video, you will respect the guys that were supporters that jumped on those vehicles and stayed with us all night long. Here's my little fun fact for you from the movie Blackhawk Down.